Hi and good afternoon. We are ready to start. My name is Rasmus Køjborg, and on behalf of HC Andersen Capital, I would like to welcome you to today's events, where we'll do a deep dive and focus into HusCompagniet's activities in Sweden. With me today to tell us more about this part of HusCompagniet, I have the pleasure of welcoming, that's both CEO of HusCompagniet, that's Martin Ravn-Nielsen, and then we have Anna Hernefried, who is head of HusCompagniet Sweden. So a warm welcome to you both.
Thank you.
And before I fully hand over to you, I'd also like to give a warm welcome to those of you who signed up for today's presentation. As usual, you can ask questions in the chat in the lower right corner. You can do that both in English and in Danish if you prefer that. And then, of course, we'll record the presentation here and put it on our different platforms afterwards. But with that, I'll leave the floor to you, Anna and Martin. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, and thank you all of you to diving in on this call. Normally, some of you have seen me together with our CFO Mads, but today I'm pleased to present with Anna, who is head of Sweden. Some few words around me. Yes, Martin Ravn-Nielsen, CEO in HusCompagniet. Actually, I feel that I'm born and raised in this industry, have been here for more than 25 years, and been a part of HusCompagniet's journey since the very beginning. So that's some words around me, but you, Anna?
Yeah, I joined HusCompagniet as responsible for the Swedish operation in 2018, and before that I had almost 10 years within IKEA, and before that a couple of different roles in Saab and Volvo, so mostly in commercial roles in global and international companies.
Thank you, Anna. If we are going to the next page, 2, often I used to see it's my favorite slide, actually, because here you are seeing our, I would say, successful journey since the beginning in 2007. We have developed our revenue from around 700-800 million to more than 4 billion today. It's a CAGR around 12% over the time. We have provided that we actually are a very resilient company, because we have in this time also see a global financial crisis. We also have seen yes, the COVID and some things that have been extraordinary hard for also the last years, but we can see that we are very resilient and do growth our company. I will come back to that later. You can also see that it has been organic growth. Despite in 2017 we made an acquisition in Sweden, Vårgårda that Anna will talk and come back to later. And we here this year, for a couple of weeks ago, we also bought Danhaus. And now we have factories in both countries, Sweden and Denmark, with a lot of synergies. There is that way. I will come back to that. But also what is, I will say, extraordinary for HusCompagniet is that over the time, since 2007, we have been owned for 3 different private equity funds. And in 2020, we were listed in Copenhagen. So it was just overall some words, and you can see the successful journey we have been in the past, and we'll come back to that later. On the next page, here you can also see the segments that we are guiding on. It is the detached, our core business, and it is the semi-detached, who is our new strategy that we start up in 2020 to go into the market around the B2B segment. And Sweden since 2017, where Anna has been head of since 2018, have made a very, very strong turnaround here. And it is also therefore we're seeing that also our Swedish company have a strong potential also going forward. But maybe, Anna, you will, if we are going to the next page, you will go a bit closer into the Swedish company we have.
Absolutely. So what we look at here is the development of the market, which is basically very similar to what we see in Denmark. We have low volatility when it comes to the detached segment, but there is also a high potential. If you ask Swedish households, 7 out of 10 wants to live in a detached house. And we have an industry organization who is pushing for having an increase in this segment, and an ambition that we would build 20,000 detached houses per year. So of course we support that agenda very well, but at the same time we see that there is a huge potential for us, considering the low market share that we hold today, that we can penetrate the existing market of detached houses. We have of course an ambition in time to look into the semi-detached and apartment segment, as well as we could be teased by looking at Norway and other markets. But we are strong in the detached segment, and this is where we want to develop. If we then look at the detached market, we can see that it's a very fragmented market, and the top 3 players, they have actually around 24% of the market share, but there is a lot of small players in this field as well. So when we look at the gross list of competitors, it's up to 80-90 competitors on the full country. So if we move to the next slide, we can see that we have taken market share during the past years, also when the market has grown. We have actually grown in a pace where we have increased our lead times in the production to the state where we actually hold back sales in order to develop the production capacity at the moment. If we then look into the fragmentation of the market, we find our competitors quite different in the different regions. In the total country, we have Älvsbyhus, Eksjöhus, and Fiskarhedenvillan of the top 3. And Älvsbyhus we find in the Stockholm region and in the Gothenburg region. But we actually don't find them among the top 3 in the South region. The same goes for Eksjöhus, who's then the second player on a national level. We actually just find them among the top 3 in south of Sweden, and then they are very strong in other parts of the country, but not as strong in Gothenburg and Stockholm. So it's an indication that it looks very different on different parts of the market as well. Yes, if we move to the next slide. So our value proposition is basically based on a customer-centric perspective. We use a platform logic when we establish our portfolio and offer. So we create customer-perceived flexibility based on this standardized prefab concept. And of course, the ambition is always to exceed customer expectation, so they also feel that they get value for money in their delivery. We have a very responsive service setup, which means that we support the local agent structure, who's mainly the first point of contact for the customers, but also the person that coordinates both sales and delivery when it comes to contractor. So we have construction engineers in direct contact with the contractors. We have customer and delivery support who support both agents and contractors. So it's a complete setup to be very responsive when support and help is needed. Yes, if we move on to the next slide.
Anna, maybe I could ask here, is this set up sort of with local sales agent, is that very typical for the Swedish market, or is that how you have chosen to approach the market?
No, it's very typical for the Swedish market, and it's an heritage that comes with the industry. And I believe that you have to recall it's quite a big country. and on many smaller locations or cities, it's a good setup for agents to have the local knowledge about the needs and dreams of the people, but also having the local network of the contractors, which can be a bit of a challenge from a central perspective. So it's the common way and the setup that we have in Sweden among us and competitors.
Very good. Thanks for clarifying. Yes. We'll go on to next slide then.
So what we've worked with then during the past years is to redefining the offer. We have refreshed and created new models, which we then have exposed in our catalogs. And the main brands that we work with is Vårgårda Hus, but we also have Vårgårda Fritidshus and HusCompagniet. So out from these base models, the customer make their individual choices, and thereafter they accessorize basically the house the same way as you do in Denmark, with doing your own personalized choices, both when it comes to layout but also to interior. The way we have worked with the offer is not only to refresh the houses themselves, it's also been a very big change journey, going from very traditional media to doing marketing via online channels and being more focused on having leads generated which are close to purchase. So basically, it's a visual and it's a design development that we've been carried through during the past years, and it turned out very well here. Yes, the next slide. So coming back to the setup and how it works with both the agents and the customer. So we have the factory in Vårgårda, where we produce the houses. The houses are then sent to the customer plot, and a third-party contractor assemble the house and complete it prior to final inspection. We have collaboration then with suppliers like kitchen, flooring, etc. So those are delivered directly to the customer's house and plot as well. But this is also the very traditional way of delivering houses in Sweden when you have a factory. So basically, we are not in any legal commitment with a contractor completing our houses, even if we have a very tight collaboration with them. So the customer holds one contract with the third-party contractor and one contract with us regarding the material. Yes, we can take the next slide. This then also have an impact on the payment model. And basically, we have a small fee by the time that the customer sign up for the house, and then the customer pay the majority of the amount by the time the house is delivered to the customer plot. And then there is a number of smaller deliveries when it comes then again to kitchen, flooring, etc. And then the customer pay those a few weeks after. They are always keeping 5% of the total amount until the final inspection is performed, and then by that time we get the final payment. So the split in between the cost ratio in the projects comes back to being a bit more for material than it is for the other parts. And we've seen those increases during the past year, which of course have had an impact on our prices as well. we've been quite alert to adjust our prices towards the customer as soon as we have gotten any messages from our suppliers that we face increases in prices. So there is a number of smaller price increases performed during the past year. And we have also done one larger one when we also saw that we were filling up the production in a larger way. Yes. Next slide, please. So we have quite long lead times, as we saw, where a customer that we address today will probably get their house delivered by autumn 2023. So of course we need to increase our capacity in order to reduce those lead times, because the potential is obviously there. So we have a great location and space in our production. And therefore we then have a project going on where we'll automate part of the production and increase the capacity up to 40%. Yes, and let's see if we go to next slide.
Yes, maybe here I will take over for you. Thank you, Anna. Over the time, a lot of people have asked me around why do you have a factory company in Sweden when you have such a big part of it in Denmark? And my answer have always been the same, that we see strong possibilities in the things Anna do in Sweden and Vårgårda in Sweden, and we also have seen over time that we are now a very good place actually, and we have a huge potential going forward because we have gained market share, but there's a lot of things to do still. We also have a lot of synergies when we are talking around the turnaround here, also the focus on the sales and customer experience and so on. Then there is a lot of synergies between Sweden and Denmark. We can use both ways actually. But here in the last around 3 weeks ago, we announced that we also now have bought a factory in Denmark. And here you really can see the synergies, of course. As we also have mentioned, with the factory, we can see that we also are building more sustainability in Denmark as we do in Sweden. It will support our semi-detached significant, because a lot of the customers there, the pension funds and other types of funds and big investors absolutely want sustainability houses going forward. So therefore it will give us some extra power in the semi-detached journey that we are starting up in 2020. Our supply chain also have an advantage here, because we now can we only have the traditional way that we in Denmark are building houses. No, we also can have another kind of a production type in the factories. And of course, the synergies between Denmark factory and the Swedish factory now become much more easier to look at, also for an investor perspective. I think so, that from the outside you can see much more. What we also can, that we have a lot of best practices that we can share with each other between the border actually, and we see now a lot of possibility going forward that way. I think it was the words from Anna and I in our presentation. Maybe there is some questions.
Very good. Thank you very much, Martin and Anna. Yeah, we had some questions coming up during the presentation here. There was a few here. Maybe go back to this slide here. There was one sort of overall, sort of how applicable are the learnings from the automotive industry, sort of on lean production, and IKEA on logistics to the construction industry. And that probably goes to you, Anna, with your background in these companies. How far are Vårgårda Hus come, or how far has Vårgårda Hus come in this journey on these fronts? Could you perhaps put a few words on that?
When it comes to lean production, there is quite a lot of synergies that you can utilize. Then, of course, it's just as in how we address the market. The factory has been a very traditional Swedish factory as well. So working with the increasing the automation or the automation support in the factory, that's something that we are starting up now. So it's not only coming from Volvo and or the automotive industry in IKEA. It's actually, I have a new production manager who has his experience in Scania. So of course the automotive industry is something to look into and see how can you do it in this environment. Absolutely. And also when we look into the platform logic, of course, we worked with that both in vehicle industry and within IKEA. So the platform logic, that's what we have utilized when we have revised our offer and portfolio of those catalog houses. So it's prepared for being more efficient in production, but then when we automate production, we will take it one step further.
Okay, thank you very much. And a follow-up to that, there was a question also, what do you need more specifically to increase this production capacity by those 40%? But that was perhaps some of the things you mentioned already by hiring new staff, etc.
Yeah, so the increase of the 40%, it's an ongoing project that will generate this.
Very good. And there were also a question here, sort of given the extreme focus from EU on getting all homes from 2026 with solar roof, what is your strategy here? Is that part of a Swedish house to install solar roofs?
We have it in the offer. Then we have not forced customer who doesn't want to order solar roof. They still have the option to order it in the traditional way.
But just to add some words on that, also what we are seeing in Denmark actually, that the customers don't have, you can say, have so much focus on that, but we are so sure that we can see now that the solar roofs and so on, we are actually significant increase our sellings that way now, because the new a lot of things around the energy prices and so on. And I'm so sure that we will see that more in all over in Sweden and Denmark as well. And over time you will also see some you can see how the design of those kind of solar roofs haven't been so nice, is a lot of customers seeing, but there's a huge develop that way also. So I'm so sure when we are talking about 2024, 5 and 6 and going forward, you will see a significant increase in that kind of roofs.
Very good. And speaking sort of ESG on a sort of more general perspective and in regards of CO2 emission, I guess wooden houses are more sustainable than other types of houses. Is that correct, Anna?
That is correct. Yes.
Very good. And also parts of that, could you put a few words on sort of the raw materials you source for a new house in Sweden? Is that sort of local materials, or do you also have to source globally as we see with other types of houses?
Most of the material is locally sourced in Sweden. So of course wood, which is the most important category, it is from Sweden. So we don't have the dependency of importing those. Then of course we have a dependency when it comes to white goods and flooring, etc., from importing those. But wood, which is the main category, and we source locally.
So you're not as hard hit as can be seen in other industries from sort of the rising input prices.
Of course, it's with a great humbleness that we see that the prices have increased. And that's also one of the reasons, or the main reason for why we increased the customer price during the past year to correspond with the increased prices we got from our supplier.
Very good. Very good. And could you there was a question here in the beginning, sort of the current state of the Swedish housing market, and do you see sort of the rising interest rates starting to affect the outlook for the housing market also in Sweden?
Well, we've seen similar pattern as we saw in the beginning of COVID. That the market becomes very careful, and of course, what's happening in Ukraine is the main reason for a careful market during this spring. Then we have the great hope that it will turn out the same way as COVID did, so it actually increased the demand in the detached segment. But of course, it's with a great humbleness and respect for what's happening in the market. But we wish and hope for that will be balanced, that people will see and understand that even if there is talk about an increased interest, we don't see a large interest increase this far at least.
But also to add on, we have actually seen at HusCompagniet all over is a resilient company. Also, one of the things I mentioned in the very beginning, in the global financial crisis, it was the start actually also for HusCompagniet and the setup we have to increase the market and gain market share and so on. So yes, we are looking into a more tough market now that we have seen the last year. But also it is time for now to show actually our muscles all over and the scale that we have all over as a company, and that I think that it will make us some advantage going forward. So yes, it is much more challenged now, but we'll come after it.
Very good, and that also brings to another question that came here. What are sort of the biggest obstacles to gaining market share in Sweden? Or we can go back to this slide, or put in other words, you have taken market share in recent years in a growing market. Could you put a few words on what have you done differently than your competitors, and what can you go from or do from forward from here?
I think a very large part is of how we revitalized our offer and how we have gone to the market with that, and using digital channels instead of traditional media. It's basically using one third of the marketing budget, but we have tripled the number of leads. So it's creating an attractive offer and then reaching out with that basically. Then the biggest obstacle, as it is for now, it's to increase the capacity.
And therefore we are making that change in the production now. So you will see us in the autumn here going. Starting up automation and robotics, the factory and so on. So yes, there's a lot of things to come. But one of the things also is that Anna and I, we also work with together. It is the online concept that we actually have started up in Denmark with Hus Online. Now we have a version 2. We are started up, developed that kind of, and we also going cross-border with our online concept. So it is also a lot of synergies and how we can play each other better actually in the market, both Sweden and Denmark.
Very good. And that was actually a question in relation to that sort of the online strategy. Are you sharing digital teams with the Danish organization, or do you have your own team for doing the digital marketing, etc.?
We have we have the local competence in the daily tracking and development, but then we collaborate in between those teams.
we have centralized the digital team. Everything is centralized here in Copenhagen, and yes, but there's some local guys who make it on daily basis in Sweden and in Denmark.
Okay, very good. Thanks for clarifying that. And also just to fully understand sort of this sales agent and third party setup that you have in Sweden, because as I always understand, the value proposition for the Danish part is that you have this security as a house builder, that you enter with HusCompagniet and take care of the full process, and basically you get a key and a house in the end. But this is different in Sweden, and with a little bit more insecurity, perhaps entering the market. Would a model like the Danish be doable in the Swedish market, or maybe you already tried that? I'm not sure.
I believe there is independently whether we have the full turnkey contract with the end customer, it doesn't hinder us for taking full responsibility of the complete value chain. So the customer have their contract with the contractor, but the contractor is someone who we recommend, and we do quality assure them. So one of the things that we do actively is that when a contractor is quality approved by us, we insure them in the customer's name. So that's one way to take the full responsibility towards the customer and give them a safe journey.
Very good. So it's not that different as it might look. It's still on getting the security for the customer. And I was also wondering, sort of a couple of last questions here. We've seen that on the semi-detached business, you had quite a good success in the Danish market so far, Martin. And Anna, would that be a model to replicate in Sweden, or would that be sort of moving into a totally new segment and having to would that not be the same contacts and those that you would have today?
There is absolutely potential in that, but we will run the capacity increase project before we start to penetrate that market as well.
Okay, and another market that might make sense, we thought about, that was the Norwegian market. Maybe you could put a few words on is sort of the similarities, or maybe the differences between how you choose to buy and build a house in Sweden and how you do it in Norway.
It's very similar, and from a historic point of view, it's the same construction technology as well. Vårgårdahus have in the past exported to Norway, so of course that could be a potential in the future as well.
Okay, very good. But I think we will finalize with that as perhaps an investor or shareholder writes here. Please focus on the Swedish market for now. So, but I'll let that be up to you. And thank you very much, Martin and Anna, for a thorough presentation here. It's been very interesting to learn more about your Swedish business. Thanks a lot for those of you who participated with a lot of good questions. But with that, we'll just end the presentation for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.